Pack light, shoot straight, stay quiet. This 1022 is going to do a heck of a lot more than any other rifle will do. Let's talk about that.
A year into the apocalypse, the world's gone to hell, and I'm holed up with a crew of tough survivors. Game's scarce around camp, so I'll be heading deeper into the backwoods to hunt. Your pack's light, only the essentials, plus a heap of ammo for the long haul. The Ruger 1022 spits 22 rounds fast and true, quieter than a centerfire rifle, and headshots will drop most anything, from varmints to bigger critters. It's gonna be a rough trek, longer than a country mile, but you're ready.
If you've ever thought a gun was really cool and insisted on carrying it only to find out it was way too heavy, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you were carrying. And as always, guys, my guns have been unloaded and safety checked prior to filming. Loaded guns and playtime never mix. Let's get back to it. The legendary Ruger 1022 needs no introduction, but in case it does, the Ruger 1022 is one of the best-selling weapon platforms of all time. Whether it's in the rifle form like this or a pistol form, also called the 1022 Charger, every gun owner should own a Ruger 1022. Not only are these rifles a treat to shoot, but they're also absolutely gorgeous, especially with the classic blued barrels and the hardwood stocks. My particular model is the 1022 Sporter, which means that the Sporter line of 1022s has its own contour of the barrel, and this stock is cut to fit said barrel. So you don't need a barrel band like a lot of other 1022s do to maintain good accuracy. The Sporter also comes with a gold bead front sight and a folding rear buckhorn sight, and has this beautiful checkering up front and on the pistol grip portion of the stock. But let's dig a little bit more into the actual stats of this rifle. The 1022 Sporter is chambered in 22 long rifle, which is the same caliber your grandfather and great-grandfather used to both plink cans off the fence line and also harvest small game for dinner. It has an 18.5-inch barrel, a 37.5-inch overall length, and weighs a mere 5.8 pounds. Now, if you can't picture the actual size of this, here's my 16-inch AR-15 with the stock fully extended. So the Ruger 1022 definitely has it beat by a couple inches. However, lightweight of this rifle and very svelte handling, you don't really notice it. This platform feeds from detachable box magazines, and you could find factory magazines from anywhere from 1, 5, 10, 15, 25, and even 50 round magazines. However, there is a gigantic aftermarket for this platform, so you could find magazines that have an even higher capacity. If Ruger doesn't do a factory run, you could definitely make it in the aftermarket. And speaking of the aftermarket, just like the AR-15, this rifle's customization is limitless. If Ruger doesn't build it themselves, you could find that part on the aftermarket. The only parts that are not factory on this is my polymer buffer, which is just what the bolt runs into when it recoils. The polymer buffer makes wear and tear a little bit less and just makes the harmonics of the rifle slightly better. And I also have an automatic bolt release. So just to show you real quick, 1022s do not have a last round bolt hold open. So here's an empty magazine just to show. So that when that last round is fired, you'll hear a click. So then to make the weapon remain safe and clear, you pull the bolt back, and there's a little toggle right here. You push down and let go. Now that 1022 is shown clear. If you wanted to drop the bolt on a fresh magazine or just to store it, you normally would have to pull the bolt back, push down on the switch, and let it go. But with an automatic bolt release, all you have to do is pull the bolt back and it'll slam home. The polymer buffer and the automatic bolt release are only a handful of bucks, and they're fairly easy to install themselves. Quick side note, I've had this polymer buffer in here for about 15 years and I've literally never had a problem with it, and it isn't really showing anywhere. I think it's a worthwhile addition to your rifle. The last upgrade I have on here that's not from the factory is this Vortex Crossfire 2-7 rimfire scope. This scope is an awesome bang for your buck, and it makes shooting this gun feel like cheating. As far as range use goes, this gun is pound for pound one of the most fun guns that you could possibly shoot. Like I said earlier, that scope makes range time feel like cheating, and the gun is super accurate. So I actually use this rifle a lot. For the video, I basically just rechecked my zero before hunting season. I checked my zero at 50 yards. Both these groups here are about 1.25 inches. For a 22 long rifle that's not meant to do anything but hunt and plink, I think is pretty fantastic. The ammo that I used for these groups was Federal Auto Match 40 grain, which isn't necessarily the best and not the worst. It's pretty middle of the road. And with the theme of the apocalypse, you're really just running what you can find. And most people aren't going to stock up on CCI Mini Mag. It's going to be general range use ammo. And on the topic of ammo and reliability, my 1022 has been incredibly reliable over the years. The only problem that I have with the reliability is going to be with my BX25 magazines. My BX25 could have been a lemon, but my standard 10-round magazine and my BX15 have been absolutely flawless. I have shot out the springs in the 10-round magazines. You just have to replace them. They're not super hard to find. If I use lube and I regularly clean my BX25, it's a pretty solid performer. Now, the true downside of this rifle is its trigger. There are upgrades that you can find pretty easily. Ruger makes their own, as well as Tandem Cross or Volquartsen. The trigger feels like you're chewing on an unpopped popcorn kernel. As you can see in my groups, it's definitely usable. I don't have a problem with it, but I do wish it was a little better. All right, so let's bring it back to the whole point of this video. In my opinion, this is one of the best all-round choices that you could have with you in the apocalypse. And if I had to go into a long hunting trip to gather supplies or to hunt some small to medium game, one of my first choices would actually be the 1022. And yes, I have a slew of hunting rifles, AR-15s, I have bows, but what I love about this 1022 is how absolutely svelte it is. When you got a bunch of stuff on your back, the last thing you want is your rifle to weigh you down, especially when this tool is between life and death. I have more trigger time behind my 22s than I do any other platform, which means that when I have to make a shot count, I can very easily do it with this rifle. Now, the stopping power is definitely not there like it would be with a centerfire rifle such as 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. But if you have a little bit of finesse, this rifle will be perfect. Now, rimfire ammunition is not as reliable as centerfire ammunition, but where it does have it beat is in a couple areas. First is going to be the muzzle report. Centerfire rifles are incredibly loud. You're going to have hearing damage no matter what if you don't have a good suppressor on there. And even if you do have a suppressor, supersonic ammunition is still not going to be hearing safe. With a 22 long rifle, you can actually fire this gun without hearing protection, without blowing your ears out. It's not exactly quiet, but you still have some situational awareness. Now, if this gun was suppressed, it'd be an even better choice. But for right now, if you're just running standard 22 long rifle ammo, you're going to save your hearing. The next advantage that 22 long rifle has is its size. This here is 2 boxes of 30-30, which is kind of about the same size box of any short action cartridge. This is 325 rounds of 22 long rifle, and it's smaller than 40 rounds of short action. It is a tad bit heavier, but you could almost fit 2 boxes of the 325 rounds as you can for 2 boxes of centerfire. Like I've said earlier, this cartridge coming out of this rifle does not exactly bode well for stopping power. If you encountered a dangerous animal, or if you're being attacked, you really got to make your shot placement count. However, Bella Twin can attest for shot placement. If I did get in a fight or I had to make a shot within 100 yards, I do think 22 long rifle can do it. And you can see in the inset footage here that I am shooting at targets between 3 and 6 inches wide, at anywhere from 100 to 120 yards depending on the spinner, and I'm hitting it pretty easily. And I'm really not taking my time with the shots. I'm just kind of pulling the trigger as you see the crosshairs on the target. And one of the nice things about this particular model of 1022 is that if something were to happen to the scope, I could always remove it and just use my stock iron sights, as they are also zeroed. I definitely think with a 22 long rifle, because shot placement is so important, I would absolutely recommend going with some sort of a magnified optic. If I were in a firefight with other survivors on my run to town or my hunting trip, I'm not saying I'd take this as my first rifle, but I wouldn't feel undergunned. Because I've shot this so much, it almost feels like an extension of my body. So I don't really got to think about pulling the trigger. As for combat effectiveness, I'm not a soldier, I'm not a cop, I've never been in a gunfight. However, I am familiar with guns and I know how they're going to perform when you shoot them fast. Let's cut to some footage here of me shooting some close-up targets. I want to see what a 22 will do to a can of Chef Boyardee, just to give you an idea of how it'll handle hard targets with some guts in them. Alright, let's check it out. You see here we got a clean entrance hole and a nice expanded exit hole. If you get laying shots on game out to 100 yards, you won't go hungry. One thing that I didn't point out in the range footage, because this thing is super light and short, if you had to go in and out of buildings with it. However, that being said, I probably would not rely on this rifle for close range engagements. I would also probably bring a secondary. Any fighting handgun that you have will do well. For me, it's going to be my Kimber 4-inch 1911 chambered in 45 ACP. It has relatively easy to find ammunition, especially where I live. The good folks where I live are good old boys, and most of them prefer 45 over 9mm, especially in 1911. So parts, ammunition, and magazines are all going to be easy to find. All right, to wrap up this, I want to go over some pros and cons and then my final thoughts. So we're going to go cons first because I think 22 long rifle deserves to end on a happy note. So I didn't actually cover this during the range session, but 22 long rifle is a pretty dirty ammunition. So you want to make sure you keep up on cleaning your gun. The Ruger 1022 is a very inherently reliable platform. So if you can keep it fairly clean, you're going to be good to go. You're just going to want to watch your higher capacity magazines. The second issue with guns chambered in 22 long rifle during the apocalypse is you can't reload the ammunition. Centerfire ammunition can be pretty easily reloaded if you have the equipment. And even if you don't have the equipment, you can reload shotguns basically with dowels. 22 long rifle is not like that. Once that shell casing is spent, you pretty much just got to find another round. And once it runs out, the rifle's a really cool wall hanger until you find more ammo. And last, of course, especially with a round that's this tiny, shot placement is absolutely key. On small games such as squirrels or rabbits, you can pretty much get away with your normal shot placement. However, if you're trying to harvest medium-sized game or even defending against two-legged predators, you need to make sure you send that 22 caliber projectile exactly where you intend it to go. As far as pros go for the 1022, it's lightweight, accurate, reliable, and quieter than the possum and underbrush. The rifles are also very budget friendly. Whatever tax bracket you're in, there's a model of 1022 for you. Because they're so common, they're really easy to customize, and replacement parts should be also very easy to find. And got just my final thoughts here. Ruger 1022 platform is offered in 27 different SKUs on Ruger's website. 23 of them are in the rifle platform and 4 are in their pistol format. And there's even more available through third-party sellers. As I've said before, the pros of this rifle far outweigh the cons. I fell down the 1022 upgrade train about 15 years ago, and I put a bunch of money into parts, and I ended up just liking the rifle in its original format. If you don't own one of these, I recommend going out and just acquiring one anyway. If you don't have one of these, you're going to need one faster than a jackrabbit on a hot skillet when the world ends. So do yourself a favor and pick one up. Once again, my name is Half-Cocked Hilbilly. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all real soon. Goodbye. Bilbo, oh my god. Thank you, Bill. Can you help me?